Graham, I appreciate you hopping on today. And for the listeners and the audience, we were talking right before this. I was like, hey, let's just jump in. So Graham, part of college properties group, CPG as we'll call it throughout, doing a bunch of cool stuff, which we'll get into. One of the main things, and it's the first of its kind, and I'll let you explain it in more detail here in a sec, but hosting this premier lacrosse event, and they're going to be able to get a ton of the players some NIL payments, and it's fascinating. So anyway, I just want to start here. I think it's a great intro into the whole thing, and we'll kind of reverse engineer this one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, yeah, thanks for having me. So we College Properties Group runs about 70 to 80 events in the youth sports space, and we're focused on running, basically recruiting camps for colleges and universities in lacrosse, soccer, field hockey, and ice hockey. And so the camps range from 100 to 240 or so kids. The real value proposition for our camps is about 95% of our staff are head coaches from those schools. Most of the camps out there, will have assistant coaches and things like that. And that's awesome. We differentiate ourselves because we deal with head coaches. So that's the real value add is. Given that situation, I've had some history with NIL and some of the things I do in the football space, and some of the people that I've met have enough to be dangerous to understand a little bit about NIL and the difference between what NIL is and what pay for play is. And a lot of the stuff you're hearing with collectives in football, basketball, that's literally pay for play. That's not name, image, and likeness leverage. So, with that being said, we wanted to create something unique in the youth tournament space. And obviously we started with lacrosse, and we work with Mitt Winter, who's a great attorney in the NIL space, and creating this, what we're calling it is the Nilly from a branding perspective. It's kind of cool, merch and all that stuff we'll have. But at the end of the day, what it is, so we have the best high school players in the country in the 2026 class. And this goes for girls and boys. The events are on 2 separate dates. 16 captains were selected, and these captains are committed to Duke and Virginia, all the top teams. From there, we'll have a pool of draft eligible players, which are all 2026 committed players, all the other kids, and there will be like 600 to 800 of those kids in the draft pool. Our 16 captains will select through a cadence, through order, just like an NFL draft. They'll select their teams with a cadence by position, and they'll, if you think about who they're going to select the best kids. We're going to have the list of kids that are all committed to these top schools, and they're going to go through and select them. So ultimately, there'll be 16 teams of 20 players. They'll play over the course of 2 days, championship format. And at the end of the event, the most marketable team, and I can select which team is most marketable. That's if I decide to choose the winning team as the most marketable team, I can make that decision. It can't be the winning team gets NIL. That's pay for play, and that's not what we're doing. Most importantly, and one of the reasons we did this, we wanted to ensure that the players who receive these NIL opportunities are engaged with charities of their choice. That was a very important component to creating this. And so in exchange for the NIL opportunities from the most marketable team, those kids have to select a charity of their choice and do X hours of work with that respective charity. Each individual player is going to have a one-off NIL, a legal NIL agreement with College Properties Group that Mitt has created, that the parent will need to sign if the player is not obviously 18 years of age. They'll do that work with a charity. They'll post it online. They'll tag us. And that's as simple as it gets. It's a really unique opportunity. We plan to roll this out in every sport that we work with.
Yeah, so lacrosse, cool. What are some of the other sports you guys put camps on for?
Soccer, field hockey, and ice hockey.
Cool.
So we plan to do the same.
Yeah, so you have, and this might go back a little more to the origin story, but the sports you've picked, you've taken very much this higher academic route of pushing to some more of the the Ivy Leagues and the the Stanfords and Dukes and Notre Dames, and then you've taken a higher income sport for the most part with lower scholarship amount. Any thinking behind that, or what was the basis between building events for these sports?
So going back when we started in 2011, we started with one event. It was called the Prep School Lacrosse Showcase. It's still going on. We have 300 plus players. The reasoning being how that started was, we took all the best players in New England Prep School. I'm originally from Avon, Connecticut, and we got all those kids together. At that particular point, I think there were 95 kids, and we had like 36 college coaches show up. It was a great idea. It was never been done before. And then 14 years later, 15 years later, here we are. But given the start there with that prep school kind of, focus, we carved out a niche, and really our masters camps, and there's soccer masters, lacrosse masters, field hockey masters, ice hockey masters, are working with college and universities that have an admission rate of 20% or less. And so we've carved out a niche and a focus in that particular area that really hasn't been done before in any sport. And with those head coaches, it's a very unique opportunity. And what we do is we provide a platform for players to get in front of the decision maker for 1 or 2 days. With that being said, we just launched Too Strong, our Too Strong brand, which will now include all of the other schools that don't fall in with that 20% threshold. So now we're, Too Strong Lacrosse. We have Maryland, the Loyola, and Cuse, and all the other schools. So that to us was low-hanging fruit because, we have a massive database. We do a lot of email marketing, and let's say we're sending out 50,000 emails. How many families can really get into that masters? Maybe 10 to 20, 15% maybe would want to do that if they have the academic and the athletic capabilities to go there. But most will fall in outside that 20%. So that was low-hanging fruit. So we just launched that brand.
That makes sense. So you start with 1. When do you start to, or when's the time period when you're like, hey, we're going to scale this. Let's get up to, would you say 80 now?
Yeah, we're somewhere between 70 and 80, and that doesn't include any of the Too Strong stuff. So the future's really bright for what we're doing.
Very cool. So how did you take it? What was the scaling process to start adding these, and how did you go about that? I know you were doing some stuff with Nike at the time and then jumped in full time at some point.
Yeah, what we don't want to do is, most of our camps are oversubscribed. The last thing, like we'll have 40 on a wait list. We could easily take the money and add kids. But the real focus is to create the value for the families. At the end of the day, we want the families walking away saying, this was an incredible experience. Whether they got recruited or not to the school of their choice is another thing. But if they walk away saying that was a great camp, they engaged with every single coach multiple times, that's what we want. And so depending on the sport, we look at where are the opportunities to expand. We're really maxed out in the lacrosse space. Just finding time now with all the events out there is very difficult. And kids are tasked to do, they're overtasked with all these tournaments and things that they're doing. And that goes for every sport. And then there's NCAA recruiting timeframes that play into this. When can you have camps? What makes sense? So all of that comes into play. So we aren't, our goal isn't to have 200 camps. Our goal is to have the right number of camps in that sports silo to be effective and always have a supply and demand issue for the.
Yeah. Now, do you run and I'm not talking about the NIL one now, but do you run the camps? Like, is there some talent evaluation? Like, how do you say you're going to take 40 kids? How do you decide which 40?
So this falls into those NCAA compliance camp and clinic rules. So if you run a camp where coaches are on the field engaged with players, the camp has to be open to anybody and everybody. It's just the way it is. That's the way that the NCAA writes the rule. The only way you can have an invite-only camp is if coaches are sitting on the sideline in a lawn chair. So we have a number of those. So our prep school lacrosse showcase is 300 kids, invite-only, uncommitted players. 100 or so coaches come every year and they sit in lawn chairs and watch. So under that scenario, you can invite the kids. If coaches are on field working with the kids, has to be open to everybody and anybody. But at the end of the day, with our Masters brand, it really self-segments itself. You're going to have kids. There's no real jewel breakers out there. The kids are solid all around. They're academically really strong. Otherwise, you wouldn't go to the camp. If you have Ivy and NESCAC in Notre Dame, Virginia, if you have a 2-2, you're not coming to the camp. It's just, or at least your parents should tell you you shouldn't go to the camp. But so that's the way that works. It's all around NCAA compliance.
Yeah, unless their dad or mom's a politician, they can donate some money or something.
I guess it might come into play.
Yeah. Now, how do you, like, from yourself now, flip into founder lens?
Mm-hmm.
This is, an event. We'll just call it. There's a lot of factors that go in it, but it's mainly an event business, not a pure product or tech.
Right.
What are some differentiations or some learnings, I guess, in that standpoint of, I'm sure when you put on your first event, you look back and you were embarrassed now at how maybe poorly you did it compared to now?
I'm
And
going
it
to
might have
get,
been great. I'm sure it
no,
was, but like I'm
I'm
curious.
going to give you one. I'm going to give you a really funny example.
I love that.
So I never played soccer. I actually never played. I played hockey when I was younger. Never played lacrosse. Never played. Obviously, didn't play field hockey and didn't play soccer growing up. So we're just operators, right? We're focused on blocking and tackling the fundamentals of making it right for the consumer. But so we ran our first soccer camp in Florida, and this was 19. And we had balls and all that stuff, and I was down there. We didn't have any cones, so we didn't think about like you need cones. But not unlike other sports, soccer uses hundreds of cones, right? And so we were at this facility, and we asked the guy who runs the facility, "Do you have any cones?" Like, "Yeah, open the garage. I think there's some out there." So I'm not kidding. They had like cones that were ducks and like geese and little lions and stuff like that. And we put and the coaches were absolutely cracking up. That's the one really call out for me is like everyone talk to our soccer coaches and think, "You remember year 2019? We brought out the ducks or cones on the field."
I mean, I don't know. It almost sounds like a good marketing ploy at some point. Like you should start implementing that into certain ones. People remember it. Oh yeah, remember that camp back in the day?
Yeah, I mean, we should have asked the coaches like, "What do we need?" We never thought we should do that. And in field hockey, we actually did that. So with field hockey, there's specific balls and the sizes and the net and everything. So our first camp last June, and we were really dialed in and it went off really well.
So how did you determine, like, when I don't know if you have back end data or it's just a gut feel, but how did you determine, okay, we did lacrosse well, we're now going to expand the sport. Like, how's your gauge, or what did you do to sort of know when to start adding things?
On the master side, I mean, there are a lot of synergies in the demo piece with lacrosse and field hockey. There's a lot of private schools. The kids go to, a lot of private schools. There's a lot of public too, but there's a lot of private schools involved in that space for sure. The New England, all the private schools down in Baltimore, PA, all that stuff. So that was kind of an easy transition for us to decide, we want to get into the field hockey space. The soccer space is a bit different. It's massive. Just the participation levels are massive. And the geography for soccer is very different. Yes, there's a lot of soccer players in New England and on the East Coast, but there's a ton in California and Texas, which is unlike field hockey and lacrosse. So we have a number of soccer camps out in California, and there's some little idiosyncrasies in the soccer space that are much different than the others. But,
now from call it a business model perspective, is it license out facilities and figure this out of where you're going to do these camps? You charge the athletes, coaches free, or how do you sort of, like, from an internal, how did you turn this into a business? And
so the biggest, the facility, we secure facilities, and so at this point in time, we've really have the same facilities we've been using forever. So now it's plug and play for most of the sports. The one thing, so we'll have a Google sheet of every event in a sport, and it'll be like 500 lines deep. I mean, it's terrible looking at this thing. And it takes some time to put it together because, when the calendar moves, events move. And based upon like a Friday becoming a Saturday, and then they move it out a week. And so things change. And in some years it's better than others as far as having that camp on that respective date. It's really interesting from that perspective. So we get with the facilities. We really have worked with the same coaches forever. And so now it's just a text message with the group, the coaches, like January 11th and 12th, we're good. Like there's no more. A lot of the heavy lifting is over. It's on autopilot now. It's just getting the date dialed, and then we're good to go. So we really have it down to a science now.
That's good.
And then we create these really great coach books for the coaches that are printed in color and have field maps and all the player data. And so we make it really simple and easy for them to evaluate the talent.
Yeah. From a tech standpoint, you do anything, or mainly just like Excel sheets, booklets still?
No, I mean, I built an app during COVID. Well, when NIL was coming into play,
okay.
I built this app. It's called Trevo, and it's so athletes can go on, set their schedules and their time availability, and they can book training, whether it's in person or virtually. with
Mm-hmm.
athlete, with youth players
Mm-hmm.
that aspire, to play the sport at a higher level. It's just something I've done on my own. We have a number of folks that use it,
Oh,
and
cool.
it's but aside from nothing in College Properties Group.
Cool. Now, as you obviously you saw this trend of name, image, and likeness, NIL, you put on this event, you're staying ahead of the curve on that type of stuff. What are some other trends or main themes you're seeing being so close to the parents and the athletes and the college coaches and aggregating them all? I'm sure you get some good feel of the market. What are some of the other things that you're seeing or hearing or feeling?
Yeah, I mean as it relates to NIL, it does exist out there, but a majority of it for college athletes and even high school athletes these days is brand engagement, right? Brand sponsorship. Somebody wants to, hook up with you to, they're gonna, if you do this on social, they're gonna give you some free. There's a lot of barter stuff out there, like, here's, I'm a sponsor of this beverage, and there's no real money behind it, but it makes the athlete feel good. So it's a win-win for the brand because it's cheap for them, and they get some recognition for giving away free product. Right? Free product's always less costly to a company than a check, so it's easier
Yes.
for them to do that. But at the end of the day, the whole NAL space, it's all heavy in basketball and football, and it's I talk to so many college kids and high school kids, and not many are doing much in the NIL space. I mean, there's only so many brands available to do deals. And look how many college athletes there are across Division 1, 2, and 3. And then as a brand, you're looking at, it's not only about followers, it's about like what's engagement. Like you might have 20,000 followers and terrible engagement. Like you post every 4 days and you have 20,000 because you did something by accident one day, and all of a sudden it bumped up, right? So there's a lot of analytics behind that stuff, but I don't see a lot of college athletes making any substantial income from NIL.
Yeah.
NIL, I think it all started and it came to a bubble with the whole football and basketball thing. And people still refer to NIL as this whole collectives paying players to go play football and basketball. They still refer to it as NIL. Yes, they're going to get paid $1 million. And I know a lineman in football who transferred schools. Why? Because they're going to pay him $1 million for 2 years. Fact. Right. But they have to do something for the money. It can't be. But now, who knows? Things are going to change. Schools will be able to pay. I think some schools, like I think it's Ohio State. I think they can pay athletes directly now.
Yeah, they're adding all the revenue sharing in, and then they're doing some pulling out of some of the, I don't know, athletic or educational performance. And I don't know, it'd be interesting. I think football completely separates. We'll see what happens with basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And then the NCAA maybe just becomes sort of the head of Olympic sports. That seems to make sense to me.
Yeah, I don't think the NCAA right now, they're just a legal body that makes rules. Their saving grace is the Final Four in basketball.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. They're just a legal provider, and then but honestly, that's what messes everything up is the fact that they do over $1 billion in revenue.
Yes,
because of March Madness from basketball, and so it's an interesting time. Now, have you done anything obviously yours are more high school focused to get kids to college. Have you done anything more college focused, as now we're even seeing a ton more lacrosse pro leagues and some of these other sports?
Nothing there. Nothing at all. We're really focused on, for the most part, it's grades 9 to 11. We just signed, arguably one of the best lacrosse players in the world. His name is Brennan O'Neill, as our first marquee athlete, Lacrosse Masters. And so he's going to be doing a lot of stuff with us. He was the Tuarton Award winner, which is kind of the Heisman of lacrosse. He was the only college player on the U.S. World Team that won the World Championship recently. He was the MVP of the entire event as a college player.
Oh, wow.
Great guy. And so we're really excited about, doing stuff with Brennan.
That's awesome. Yeah, very cool. What, as you look toward the next couple of years, obviously this NIL event, keep dominating your field hockey and lacrosse and soccer. What's next on the pipeline, or other initiatives you're thinking about?
We're looking at other sports. The one thing we did learn as a business when we were in golf, we messed around in golf a little bit, but at the end of the day, when you're working with sports that are individual, so it's individualistic. So I mean, when you're In golf, it's scoring, right? In swimming, it's timing. Track and field, it's running times. You don't need, the coaches don't need to go there and see the intangibles. I mean, someone could have an interesting body type and, run a 4.240. It doesn't matter. You don't need to see the intangibles and the athleticism on the field. So it's, so what we learned is that, we did get some kids to sign up for our golf camps, but it doesn't make any sense because they play the AJGA tour. They have a list, just like the USTA has their rankings. You can see who they're playing against, the competition. There's real no need for, they do exist, but we just felt it wasn't worth our time to get in that space. So we're going to focus on sports where coaches need to evaluate talent, athleticism, skill set, IQ on field, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, the individual sports are interesting because they do fit a lot of the higher education that you're talking about, but yeah, it doesn't fit as much the coach side.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Now, are there any sports on the flip where like they actually fit like what coaches would look for, but they maybe don't fit the education side as much?
It's a good question. Well, I can't think of any there.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like basketball and American football would be tougher ones potentially, but just because there's so much else out there in infrastructure. But I don't know.
Yeah, the football, we look, the football and basketball piece is interesting, but the problem in having camps there on the football side, at least the FBS and FCF schools, is that coaches are not allowed to work any third-party operated camp. It's illegal. They can have their camps on campus only at a defined point in time. I think it might be in June or July. I think it's in June, and that's all they can do. So on the FBS, FCS side, you can't really do anything. There's no coach or staffer or anybody. So, but the only opportunity we see in football or basketball could be, doing some kind of a D3, camp, because there's a lot of great, the NESCAC schools have some great football. There's a lot of D3 schools, Hopkins, that have good football, where you have that demo and those kids who would be interested in getting in front of those coaches, because the camp and clinic rules do not apply to any Division III program.
Yeah, I think Hoop Group might be the only one that does like sort of a D3 camp, but it's just like generic and it's built off another one. Anyway, from my basketball days, that's just trying to think. Yeah, there's basketballs are such a big market too, though. I'm sure you can.
It is. It is the thing.
I'm saying that in a good way for the most part.
Yeah, we look at the payment piece of it too, like the affordability. Like, what's the threshold? Like, our camps are $695 for 2-day camps, right? I don't know. Could we get that in a basketball camp? I don't know. I don't know the answer, right? And could we get that in a D3 football camp? I don't know the answer to that question. It's because at the end of the day,
you could definitely get it. It's just, can you get it at scale? I guess is the question. Obviously,
yeah, we could do a camp or two and not get 100 kids, get 40.
Yeah,
but it's not worth our time. To your point,
yeah,
it's all about scaling it. Not tremendous scale, but having something that's worthwhile where you can have 6, 8, 10 camps annually, right?
Yeah, 100%. Now, first off, this has been great. As people look to learn more, or, maybe their kids are going through the process or whatever. Where's the website? Where can people learn more? Figure out, see some of the camps, and
everything we have falls under collegepropertiesgroup.com. So all of our brands across all sports, the NIL tournament, and everything we do there is on that site. They all have independent sites, but we do have one consolidated
Love
site.
It. Yeah, we'll post a link, and that's good. And then, awesome. Yeah, super cool. Really, really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And going real quick on the NIL piece. So we actually have. So the boys event is a 2026 committed, 16 teams of committed players. Then we have 16 teams of the best 2027 players as well. That's one event, July 21 and 22. Then we have the same for girls, 32 teams, 16 committed, 26 and 16 of 27s, July 7th and 8th. Then we have a 2025 D3 committed event, June 18th and 19th. So we actually have 3 separate NIL events for different grad years.
Love it.